Northeast Regional Children's Advocacy Center is happy to present this video on working with children with disabilities in child abuse cases. My name is Michelle Mullen, and I'm a training specialist with NRCAC. As CACs and MDTs learn more about working with children with disabilities, we can provide a more sensitive approach in working with families. MDT professionals can ask questions, be patient, identify needs, learn more about the disabilities, and proceed with a calm approach to best serve kids and families that we're working with. In this video, you will hear from Stacy Whitney from Model Consulting Group. Stacy has years of experience as a forensic interviewer and currently provides training on the topic of working with people with disabilities of all ages. Dave Whalen is the project director for Niagara University First Responder Disability Awareness Training. He has years of experience working with individuals with disabilities, currently training first responders across the country. He has a long-term history of volunteer work and service in Western New York. It is also important to hear from prosecutors about their experience investigating child abuse cases that involve children with disabilities. Lisa Beatty is Chief of the Special Victims Unit, and Ann Yaz, Assistant District Attorney, are from Norfolk County DA's Office and Norfolk Advocates for Children, the CAC in Foxborough, Mass. Their years of experience in child abuse cases includes advocacy on these cases with children with disabilities, as well as community outreach and awareness.
Hi, my name's Lisa Beatty. I'm an assistant DA at the Norfolk DA's office in Massachusetts, and I've worked here for over 20 years in a variety of different roles, both as a victim witness advocate and now as a lawyer, and I'm chief of the Special Victims Unit.
I'm Dave Whalen, the project director at Niagara University's First and Emergency Responder Disability Awareness Training Program, based in Niagara Falls, New York. I've been in the field of disability since 1986. I was a developmental disability service provider. I am the parent of 24-year-old twins, my son having developmental disabilities.
Hi, my name is Ann Yaz. I'm an assistant district attorney, and I am the NRCAC coordinator and cybercrime prosecutor at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. I am a member of the team at the Norfolk Advocates for Children in Norfolk County, Massachusetts.
My name is Stacy Whitney, and I'm currently the Senior Director for Model Consulting Group. I'm delighted to be part of this video with the Northeast Regional Children's Advocacy Centers. My current role is to develop and deliver trainings to multidisciplinary team members on communicating with and interviewing children and adults with disabilities. Prior to that, I was the senior forensic interviewer at a child advocacy center in Western New York. Some statistics that teams should be aware of regarding children with disabilities is that we know that kids with disabilities are about 3 to 7 times more likely to be neglected and abused than kids without disabilities. So I know that as I've gone throughout the country, a lot of centers have told me that maybe they're not seeing a lot of kids with disabilities, and we know that that's not because the abuse and neglect isn't happening. So similar to kids without disabilities, these kids with disabilities are being abused by people that they know, love, and trust. So a lot of times it's happening in settings that are very private, similar to most abuse cases.
I think the biggest challenge that we face in prosecuting these cases is the misunderstanding that no one would abuse a child with a disability. And what's unfortunate is that these kids are actually even more vulnerable and just as, if not more likely, to be abused. And no one wants to believe that, and quite frankly, no one wants to think about that because it's just so sad.
So we know that child abuse can happen in all settings. Perpetrators come in all shapes and forms throughout all child abuse cases, and the same is true for kids with disabilities. Their increased susceptibility often has to do with the one-on-one access that people have to them. So service providers, whether they're in residential care or in therapies or other services, whether it's respite care, someone coming into their home to provide relief for their caretaker, or whether it's their caretaker themselves. We know that kids with disabilities often are in these one adult, one child situations, and often more frequently than even kids without disabilities. So the opportunities are there. We also know that offenders will sometimes seek out opportunities to abuse kids with disabilities and put themselves in positions of trust so that they can engage in that abusive setting that they so often manipulate their victim and the people around them to even find themselves in the first place.
Disability is not a singular word. Each disability, which we'll define shortly, is in and of itself calls for proper understanding and certain tools, techniques, and responses that are going to be specific to that, again, that child or that need area. In defining disabilities, we start with understanding brain injury, be it congenital or hereditary, neurological disorders, neurological impairments, their role and place in developmental disabilities, where disabilities are manifested, how they came about. Developmental disabilities have a clear-cut link to some form of neurological disorder or impairment. So first and foremost, very important to understand that most people with one disability have a second or third.
I think a misperception about a child with disabilities is that they can't be credible. And indeed, children with disabilities can be very, very credible. We have to listen to them. We have to figure out what they're saying. And we have to figure out how they're saying. And that's our job as team members. It's our job as prosecutors, and it's our job as law enforcement to take what these children say extremely seriously and work our hardest to protect them.
Often in the world of kids with disabilities, we're focused on what kids can't do. But what this change in focus does for us is says, hey, how does this child communicate? What do I need to know about having a successful conversation with this child? And then teams can really make sure that they're being strengths-based in their approach while also being person-centered and trauma-informed. So it gives us an opportunity to be successful with interviewing kids with disabilities and through providing services through the entire multidisciplinary team and child advocacy center process. Because each kid deserves the opportunity to go through that process and to have the resources and have the accommodations that are necessary if they are. And what I love about the field of forensic interviewing is it's really evolved ever since the beginning, but certainly what I've seen over the last decade is that making those necessary accommodations for kids with disabilities so that they can feel heard and be present in the room, those are the cases that I think of that were the most successful. So I interviewed somebody who was labeled nonverbal. He didn't speak. And he used some American Sign Language and some yes, no, and gestures to answer my questions. And I was able to ask him questions in a direct but not leading or suggestive way and find out lots of information about the sexual abuse that he had experienced. And it was something that, my law enforcement and prosecution partners weren't so sure about, but once they saw the video and once they heard more about it and some corroborative evidence was put together, there was no question that what he was sharing was something that had really happened to him.
We know that children with disabilities can participate in forensic interviews and be part of investigation and prosecution of cases. Sometimes we need to provide accommodations for this to happen, and I think what we're learning is that finding out all the information about a child's disability, what their family can tell us, and gathering all that information will help team members work most successfully with these children and families to provide access to services.
Everyone needs disability awareness training. What we have done is come together and develop the nation's only comprehensive training for law enforcement, firefighter, EMS, and 911 telecommunicators. All distinctly different, but all related just the same, specific to first response. The intent of our program is to provide proper training and awareness specific to disabilities, defining each disability specific to themselves, to make sure that first responders are both aware, sensitized, and know how to properly and appropriately, accurately respond to incidents and scenarios specific to individual disabilities. The intent is what we call the RARE model. Recognize the indicators, identify the disability, approach appropriately specific to each disability, as well as interact and respond specific to each disability.
At NRCAC, we have some accommodations that we've used in interviewing children with disabilities. The one that we often use is allowing a child to come and visit the CAC before we do the actual interview. We now also have a social story in place so that the child doesn't have to physically come to the CAC. A social story is often used for children with disability to explain something that doesn't come innately to them. We have all the different parts of the MDT and the FI in the social story, including the nurse, the victim witness advocate, the FI, the police officers. Everyone who's part of our team is represented in the social story. We also support children's need for breaks. We support extended FI interviews if that would be best for a child with disabilities. And we try very hard to accommodate any other special requests that wouldn't interfere with the FI process and the integrity of that process.
So when we're talking about accommodations with families, those are conversations that are likely to be in-depth and could take place on a number of different occasions. As I said before, we need to have an understanding about the child's disability and what helps them to communicate best, but we also have to be honest with families about what is possible and what is likely to happen if we change the overall structure of a forensic interview dramatically. So all forensic interviews are meant to be non-leading, non-suggestive, and there are good reasons for that, which predominantly have to do with the criminal justice system. So it's really important to make sure that kids are safe and to make sure that the forensic interview at the CAC is the appropriate place to take their statement. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. So those conversations can't be rushed, but we're not going to be able to make every accommodation and achieve a prosecution. So everybody just has to be open and honest and thoughtful, and then make a decision that's right for the MDT and also right for the child and the family.
So as far as disabilities or diagnoses that I see most often in kids with disabilities, I would say that both in practice and in training, the ones that people on multidisciplinary teams are the most nervous about working with are kids with autism and kids with intellectual disabilities. And what I've seen is that people feel like they need to change their entire practice based on the child's diagnosis. And what we know from both research and practice is that as long as we're engaging in those good, solid, best practices, evidence-based conversations with kids, that those strategies work with kids with and without disabilities. Instead, team members feel like they need to change their entire approach, and as a result don't ask those open-ended narrative prompt type questions because they think that kids with disabilities can't handle those questions, when in reality they really can. And there's more research showing that kids with disabilities have greater capacity for narrative than previous research showed us. It's just whether or not they're being given those opportunities.
Yeah, we try very hard to meet each victim where they're at and do the best things for them when we're prosecuting a case, whatever that means. If that means that they need more prep sessions to take the witness stand, we're happy to do that. If that means that they need more time to look at the courtroom and get used to the courtroom, we can arrange to do that. They can have a support person in the room while they're testifying. There are lots of things that we can do to try to make them comfortable. They still have to take the witness stand, and they still have to answer questions just like anybody else. But whatever we can do to get them ready to do that and understand the process, we're happy to try to do.
So when first responders are going into homes or encountering a person, a child or a young adult with a disability in the community, take a step back. Okay, don't rush. Patience. Okay, ask questions specific to that moment. What do you want me to do here? Try to identify, back to our program model, the RARE model. Recognize some of the indicators. Identify the disability. If someone's telling you the disability, okay, now what's my approach? Often calm, okay, never hyped up. We want to ensure that in this moment, we are responding to what their need areas are. If no one's injured and they're having, say, a challenging moment, but no one's being hurt, property damage isn't occurring, and they're not putting themselves or others at risk, let the behavior play out.
It's important to me that everybody in our community is safe from violence. And as I said before, we know that kids with disabilities can be especially vulnerable. It's important to me that their rights are respected. It's important to me that their voices are heard. And it's important to me that we take the time that we need, that we devote our resources, and that we don't discard anybody. and that we don't discount anybody, and that we don't think that people with disabilities don't matter. That's really important to me.
This work is important to me because I am a parent of a special needs child, and I hope that every team member treats every child with disabilities with as much respect and love as I hope that people will treat my child.
This work's important to me because I'm passionate about making sure that everybody has the information that they need to be able to serve kids with disabilities the best way that those kids deserve. So I think it's part of all of our mission, and I love meeting people and help them put tools in their toolbox and thinking about the different ways that they can do their job well so that kids with disabilities are really just afforded the same opportunities as kids without.
This video is an overview on this topic. It is not meant to be comprehensive. We hope you will use this as a starting point and access the many resources that we will provide to do some more training and education for your professionals in the field. Thank you all for your service and your work for child abuse victims across the country.